Welcome in. This is Come Get Some. I'm your host, Blake Williams, here with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams. And it was a rough one this weekend. Another rough West Coast win. It's been a long time, since the Browns have won out on the West Coast.
Time.
Over what we were seeing over 15 years, 0-9 in the last 15
2008,
years.
yeah.
Yep. And so we've got a great show for you guys today. We're going to heavily get into the Browns and all aspects. We're gonna break down the defense, some things that have been going on in particular. I know a lot of viewers are interested in that. And then we're going to get into talking about Joe Flacco and the offense and some of the road versus away, things that you see going on. We've got a special guest with us today, Mr. Paul Brown, not the owner, the super fan. Paul Brown will be joining us from London to talk ball, and we'll finish it up with some stats, some crazy stats, some guess some stats. But G-Dub, looking at that yesterday, like we talked about, we're in an inflationary environment right now, so it's not your 2 cents, your 3 cents. Give me your 3 cents, your three biggest takeaways from yesterday's game that stood out to you.
One, not only the Cleveland Browns, but throughout the National Football League, the number of drop passes is astronomical to me. And as you know, I would come into meetings with my hands on backwards and all that kind of stuff, or I'd have a hatchet wanting to know if we need to cut somebody's hands off and put some new ones back on. It's amazing to me the number of drop passes, and that is repetition on their part. You're a pro athlete, get it fixed. The other thing would be is that, right now, Cleveland, you got to do better offensively and defensively in the red zone. When you're there, you got to put touchdowns on the board. And when you're there on defense, you make them kick field goals or knock them out of the scoring zone and don't let them go in the scoring zone. And then the final thing is just the big deal is that, the lack of takeaways that we had on defense didn't multiply up enough to handle the one takeaway we did have, or we had a turnover at that particular part of the game. That was a real crucial momentum part of the game, and you got to battle through those things. But when we've been dominant on defense, we've taken the ball away a bunch, and the no takeaways was a big part of that game.
No, exactly. I think that's the biggest thing, going back, and seeing in Denver doing it again, this past week, that's the biggest thing that's fueled their big turnaround of having 4 straight games, now or more of over, 3 or more takeaways.
And you know that, being on the staff with us, when we were dominant, we're taking the ball away. We're doing all those type of things on getting more possessions for the offense, creating field position for the offense. And early in the year, we were very dominant with that, and we've slacked off a little bit and got to pick it back up.
So you spoke a little bit about momentum there and about just good fundamental ball right there, and so leads us into talk about this being the time of year, kind of the pre-playoffs in December in the NFL, and to a degree, regardless of what's happened up until this point in the year, some log jams that may happen that the real teams separate themselves in December. Talk about playing in December and how important that is, and how teams separate themselves in December.
It doesn't make any difference whether you're a young NFL team or you're an older NFL team. Doesn't make any difference at all. But the month of December is pre-playoffs. This is how you set yourself up to handle the pressures of the game. The ability level will be better because you're not going to be playing the teams that didn't make it. You're going to be playing somebody comparable or better than you, and how you go about handling the intensity of those situations. And again, it doesn't just start when you show up on Sunday or Monday nights or Thursday nights, whatever it is you're playing. It starts on how you prepare in the meetings and your expectations at practice, your expectations in walkthrough. You've got to ramp it up as a coach so that the players feel that intensity so that they're not shocked, in the month of December, and then even more shocked when it all gets ramped up in January.
I totally agree, and I think the fans maybe saw a little bit of this. What I'm saying here now is I think we have, and I hope we have, the right quarterback at the right time for December and January. The rest of the team that has been doing some things so well all year long to keep us in it. When other things were maybe going on crazy at the quarterback position, need to step it up and continue to be that, because I think we've got a person there to be able to manage the ship, the right way in December, in January, and go on a run. But we got to get back to playing complementary football and dominate into December.
So you mean that you're agreeing with me that Joe Flacco was a good thing when I've heard all the other kind of criticisms out there, like what the heck was I talking about? Like somebody who's won Super Bowls, who's won championships, who's been in tough December games in January and February, and didn't look too bad, when he got out there rocking and rolling. I totally agree.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to talk about Joe Flacco in depth later in our offensive breakdown segment. But please stick with us right here. When we get back from these messages, we're going to be joined by Paul Brown from the UK. Welcome back. This is Come Get Some. I'm your host, Blake Williams, with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams. And we're joined by our great friend, Paul Brown. No, not raised from the dead, Paul Brown. Our friend Paul Brown from London, the UK, Paul Brown. Thank you for joining us, brother.
Yeah, great to speak to you too. Have you recovered from the first time we went tailgating together?
You know what? that was an experience of all time for me, because there was 40 plus years. Well, even as a player in high school and college, and then going into coaching for 40 plus years, I had never ever had a chance to go to a tailgate before, and that was fantastic. It took me a while to recover.
No, we definitely have recovered. For the viewers out there who don't know, our man, the opening game of this year, our man Paul was in Cleveland and invited us down to the Muni lot. Said, "Oh, you guys have never experienced this," and we're like, no, when we get a chance, you got to come, and it's an amazing experience. But speaking of recovery, have you recovered yet? I know you were in LA yesterday at the game, and then flew on a direct flight straight back to London after the game. So have you recovered yet?
As you can see, the bags under my eyes. The answer is no, but yes. I got some sleep on the plane, and we're now end of the day in Monday here in London. So tonight I'll try to go to sleep at midnight for a normal day tomorrow, Tuesday.
Hey, that's a true super fan right there. How was LA? How was it your first time there, or you been to LA before?
I have been to LA before. I spent 1 day driving around exploring LA, and then got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, went to the Griffin observation, saw the sun come up. Amazing city, LA, and then had some tacos. Went to Malibu, and then met up with all the Browns fans in the evening. Met Machine Gun Kelly.
I was gonna ask you about that, because I saw on social media you were hanging out with Machine Gun Kelly. How was that?
Yeah, cool. People were coming up to him asking for photos. He said, "Look, I'm here as a Browns fan. I don't really want to do photos, so I'll never ask a celebrity for a photo anyway." But
you're a celebrity, dude.
No.
You're the guy.
and I don't like being called a super fan, by the way. I'm just a local fan who likes to travel. So, he's a good guy, and think about it. He's a international superstar, and he's just hanging around with Browns fans. How cool is that?
No doubt. I think, and I think you probably saw last week where he patched in the middle of the Kelsey's show and was trying to recruit Travis to come back home and play for the Browns. Offered him $500,000 of his own money, and that he would personally deliver him coffee and breakfast from his cafe that's right next door to my office here in downtown
That's
Cleveland.
also bringing Taylor here also, because he has to bring Travis and Taylor. Totally. All right, got it.
Totally. Were there a lot of Browns fans out there? Did the Browns Nation travel well?
Yeah. There was one segment in the stadium where there was 50% Browns, 50% Rams fans. in general, there was 1 to 10 Browns fans, but we were loud. It was a good atmosphere in there. I think I asked Greg this question, what was his favorite stadium for the noise and everything, but it wasn't that loud in there. I think SoFi is designed as a new modern stadium rather than the best acoustic sound.
No doubt, and you were, I mean, you were there, and and played in it. When the Rams moved from St. Louis to LA, and like you talked about, that's kind of always, even after winning the Super Bowl, kind of been the thing, right? Is that a lot of opposing teams fans end up in the stadium more so than Rams fans.
No
it
doubt.
Seems to be.
No, they really do, and the noise of the stadiums, and that one's a little bit better for sound than some of the old time stadiums that I've been in the past.
Well, being there in person, like what was your take? What was your feel in the game? I mean, I know we saw it kind of got away from us a little bit at the end of the game, but hard fought throughout the game. But what was your take? What did you see?
Yeah, I think definitely the first half. I think all the Browns fans felt we're going to win. We could win this game, or we're in the game. This could be our moment. But I think in that fourth quarter, with the interception and just the defense not standing up maybe as well as it did earlier in the season, I think the game was over mentally. I think when that interception went across. So it was annoying. In the back of my head, I was thinking to myself, is this going to be the repeat of the Jets game where 5 things went wrong and it's our day as a Browns fan? But it wasn't our day, I'm afraid to say. So, but yeah, the Browns fans were A1, great turnout. The pre-party was amazing. You got Eric Metcalf, Bernie there, Machine Gun Kelly. Just
a real Hollywood affair for a
no
game
doubt.
in LA.
There was other American guys there that I don't know that were like superstars, and I just walking around. I was like, okay, cool. So
there was a shot of LeBron being there too, watching the game. So they showed that.
Well, did they show it on the TV? He was there.
Yeah, they did. Yep. They showed it on the TV that he was there.
I think in the stadium they wanted to keep the LA Lakers loyalty with the Rams, so he wasn't shown. So yeah,
that's true. But a Cleveland boy. But how does, speaking of we can understand how LeBron would be a Browns fan. I mean, obviously from being here, born and raised, won a world championship here. But how does somebody from the UK, become a Cleveland Browns fan of all things?
Yeah. So first of all, there's 1,000 Browns fans in the UK that support Cleveland Browns, which some people in Cleveland just don't understand. That over here, there's a big NFL following, and everyone's got their own team. They're very loyal to that team. Maybe something different between the American and the English fans is, when you've got one team, you'll stay with that team for life. You'll never have a second team. It's in your blood. You pick a team, and like the Jags maybe coming to London, I'm not going to go and support the Jags. I may go watch one game a season, if that, but I'd much prefer to go to Cleveland, and that's how the UK fans feel, is that they'll always support their team through thick and thin. But why I'm a Browns fan is basically I've been wearing the Cleveland Browns stuff or Brown stuff for years, and I never knew a lot about it. I knew I didn't want to wear Raiders, so I just bought Browns with my name. And then someone said to me, we've got a fancy league. You've got all the gear on, but you've got no idea about American football. Learn it and join our league. So, probably 10 years ago, I then studied American football and fell in love with it, and been traveling out to Cleveland for the last 10 years, and enjoying the hospitality the locals give me.
That's amazing. And I'm not a from Cleveland, either, but I've chosen this to be my place, my adult hometown, as I could call it. And so it's amazing. There's some sort of pull and draw here. I mean, I feel
great
that
fans,
too. But
great family.
You spoke about all that traveling. Like, if you had to guess, like this season, the 2023 season, how many miles between air, and I know you did the Seattle trip, in the Browns, in the Browns bus, all the way across the U.S. How many miles do you think overall you'll cover this year to go see Browns games in person?
Oh Jesus, I'll guess 50,000 miles.
50,000
I'm guessing that.
miles.
That's really quick maths, but
I would agree with that. I think here's one I get a lot as well too. You know, when people know that I know you and whatnot is, I think the Browns Nation wants to know is, okay, what does Paul Brown do, and how can he have the time and money and whatnot to just go 50,000 miles at any point in time and travel and see his favorite team?
yeah. So to answer that question, I've got a media business. I've got three businesses. I've got property, media, and I do journalism as well here in England. Yeah, I travel very cheap. I sleep on sofas, so the cost of the trip isn't as big as maybe an American person who will get accommodation, who will get parking. Parking's so expensive in America, but you know,
Yeah,
I know.
Yes.
yeah. But for example, it cost me just under $500 to fly London to LA, and when you start talking about Cleveland to LA, that probably be 300 to 500 as well
Mhm.
dollars, I'm guessing. So all the only difference between me and a Cleveland-based fan is I just travel longer. Normally, the costs are quite similar.
Well, thank you. There, you heard it there. Inflation of parking. It's
I know,
true.
it is. It's
It is.
true.
It is.
It is. It is crazy. I know. We, it's even an influence in the Muni lot, and whatnot that we have down here. It's crazy. But are you going to the Jags game?
No, so the way I do it is in May when the schedule comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I always try and do home game Cleveland, and then try and do as many away games as possible. So I'll always do home game and an away game for like 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks, and then normally one or two after Christmas, and then hopefully playoffs. So Cincinnati will be the next game I come to away. So that'd be good.
Well, there you go. We've got to finish strong in December to be able to get you back in for a ton of games, and we'll do maybe a Muni lot party in the snow. But I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support. I'll see you when you get into town. Please stick with us when we get back from these messages. We're going to get into some deep breakdown of the defense. Welcome back. This is Come Get Some. I'm your host, Blake Williams, here with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams. In this part of the show, we are going to have our defensive breakdown. I know, pun intended, I guess, because there's been some defensive breakdown the last 2 weeks. I know our viewers are very interested in your take and our take, G-Dub, on this. And so talk about it. I mean, we've seen 2 West Coast road battles the last 2 weeks, and the vaunted defense has sprung some leaks for real. And I mean, kind of a little every time we've gone out to the West Coast to a degree. I mean, if you wanted to clump Seattle in there earlier in the year, but just sticking to these last 2 weeks, what and yesterday even in particular, what did you see and what have you seen from the defense and their struggles the last 2 weeks?
Now with the amount of film that's out there, and obviously with the amount of film, that you're looking to see what's Jim Schwartz going to do with this group of guys. There's enough film out there right now, and with a couple of really good coaching staffs out there right now, they're going back to and they're giving the quarterback more freedom to put them in the best type of play. And you'll see the check with me systems they've got going on. You'll see the making 2 or 3 calls into the helmet, and the quarterback has the opportunity now to put him in that. But you see that the quarterback is up there changing more of the guessing calls, that any coordinator who's standing on the sideline is guessing this will be good, but putting it into the hands of the players out there on the field. And with Matthew and Stafford and with Russ, both of them, with well coached with Sean, both of those guys had some good check systems that allowed them to put stress on the defense on the alignments that they were playing in.
No doubt. And I agree with you. And I think, some of the big picture, I'd say some of the big picture things that I've seen over the past couple weeks that have caused issues. So one is what I would say coverage depletion, right? And so first of all, clearly clearly, maybe you were right about Denzel Ward being important to pass rush.
Yeah.
All right, we told that story here earlier in the season about the pass rusher versus the pass coverer. But I would say the overall depletion. Yes, Denzel is a huge part of what we do here and how it's been built. But don't forget about the 3 safeties, right?
No doubt.
That we have down as well too, right? So like the whole, almost the whole entire, starting safety and veteran backup and Rodney, being down, and so that whole thing, creates some issues there, and I think that's part of also why you see the pass rush numbers in production go down the past couple weeks, even yesterday, because when you're watching the film, we see the great rushes, right? We see the great rushes, and the ball's just out, right? And I think that's what you're seeing right now is it's negating the rush because there's not as much tight cover being played, and that's what happens when you have multiple people, right? Some communication issues like yesterday in the split the seam, for the long touchdown to Puka Nacua, but that's some repeat issues. I mean, we saw that early in the season versus Pittsburgh as well too.
Yes.
So I think that goes back to what you were talking about with repeat issues showing up on the film, right? I mean, you talked about the run game. That's another thing that we've been seeing. Right, is it that needs to get fixed, which is right now, and you watch even over the last 2 weeks, the long run versus Denver, multiple yesterday, is anytime somebody wants to get into a condensed formation, get all the receivers, tight ends down in close, kind of crackable looking formations, and then be able to toss crack or fly sweep crack out on the edge, they have it anytime they want. And part of the issue is from an alignment standpoint, we're not always aligned soundly enforcing it, but then two, the off-the-ball players are expanding and chasing and running towards the sideline versus attacking the play now and kind of constricting it and not letting it to expand. And so there's consistently this alley through the numbers, the landmark that the offense wants that we're giving them. And that's something that the people are clearly seeing on film right now and picking on that we need to chase off the film on that stuff on the edge that showed up, and then you talked about it as well too, and not everybody can do this. Not every team can do this because not every quarterback can do this. But the last 2 weeks of getting in these declaration formations, right? I talked about it a lot. You talked about it a lot. Heck, Dan Orlovsky did a whole thing on ESPN about it this past week from the Denver game. But they're getting into these formations that clearly define the defense, right? Because the defense is so dominant and been playing so dominant. They want to say get the right look, so define the defense and then check to the right play for that. And so answers from that standpoint is you got to get healthy. Also got to be able to really sit down as a staff and with the players and figure out, hey, how are we going to align to enforce these condensed split formations? And then 3, probably need to disguise a little bit more. Right, and probably need to disguise
a home run,
bogey, and disguise the defense and rock a little bit.
And I want to make some comments on that. And going back to all old time football, everything you have a primary force defender, you have a secondary force defender, and unless you've watched our film. Okay, and you were a big part of that when we did the ultimate force. Is that when are you going to force the ball to stay inside? Okay, the hashes, inside the midpoints. Okay, don't let it ever get to the numbers because now you've got non-tackling or not as good a tacklers in the secondary, and then how do you go about crack replacing? How do you go about attacking downhill instead of attacking sideways? Those are all things that have to be corrected in the run game.
No doubt, and we've been here before, and that leads me to this next question. Even in our dominant years, I mean, you have dominant stretches, the whole all those things, and then you have a little run of 1 week, 2 weeks, of bad stuff. But talk about that, how you would handle and how we've always handled that approach when stuff is starting to show up repeat on film. What the process is to chase that off of film.
We have specific position drills on those errors that are continuing to be routine. And then instead of drawing cards up and trying to be Einstein on how you have the scout team run the play, is that you put it into our offensive team's vernacular and tell them to run this formation, however you call it, run this type of run, so we're getting full speed action in practice. And we're not going to the ground. It's not full speed contact where you're hurting people in practice and not getting into the game, but you got to make decisions at high pace, okay? And you can't be walking around and thinking that walkthroughs are going to fix that. Those are the things that have to be done.
Well, and that's what kind of our process always was, right? That you touched on, which is hey, it's on film. We've shown it. So don't tell me anymore that you got it. Whether if it's a player thing, it's a coach thing. And that's something I always respected about you was, okay, well, I've watched it on Sunday. So we were supposed to have it in training camp. We were supposed to have it corrected from next week. Now I'm going to make you show me. We're design a drill for that. Show me in practice. Hey, we're going to take one whole period where we would normally be working on the other teams.
And that's all we're going to do.
No, we're not going to work on the team that we're playing this week. We're going to go back and we're going to work a whole period on that. Why? Because guess what? This offense we're playing this week may not even have those plays in their offense, and they're installing them right now because they look real good.
This is a copycat league.
They look real good. And
they're
so
going to do that.
To chase it off the film.
Yep.
It's some simple little bitty things, but you have to get it corrected before it festers and becomes poison and becomes toxic.
And then it comes back up, the players can stand up, and all of a sudden they can imitate me by saying, it can't be that simple. No, it can't, okay? It can't be that simple. We got to do it on the grass before we get to the game, and then it's not a surprise in the game with the success that we're having.
Hey, we're preaching to the choir. I know Schwartz is that same way and having those same conversations today. And I think they'll get the ship righted. Please stick with us. And when we get back after these announcements, we're going to break down in depth Flacco in the offense and some of the road versus away discrepancies we see with the team right now. Welcome back in to Come Get Some. We just broke down the defense in depth and kind of some of the things that are popping up on film, some of the repeat things, some of the things that we've got to get fixed. And now we're going to shift to offense. And I don't know if the viewers and the fans fully all of them really realize this, but Mr. Come Get Some himself over here was actually an offensive guy his entire life.
Yep.
G-Dub was a quarterback, played quarterback all the way up through college, started the first decade or so of his career as an offensive coordinator and an offensive-minded head coach, and then got a chance to coach defense, and especially coach defense for Buddy Ryan, and saw how much of what Buddy did affected the quarterback and how hard it was for the quarterback, and kind of never went back. But so speaking as a former quarterback, longtime coach, what did you see from Joe Flacco, another one of our ex-players, yesterday? What did you see out of Joe?
I like that history lesson right there. And you know what? The defense with George Allen's system through Jack Pardee. And then I had the audacity to have Dick LeBeau on my staff when I was a head coach. So I've had a lot of really good mentorships there on the defensive side. Joe showed me that when I was asked about bringing him in, that they needed to get him in as soon as possible. He showed a presence. He showed a comfort zone when he got out there. All these years he's played, not having any OTAs, not having any spring practices, not having any preseason games. He stepped right back in, was playing, and the number one thing, and I don't care if it's Deshaun, PJ, DTR, all that kind of stuff, all right? His pocket presence was better than all the quarterbacks we've already tried to play. So I see really good things, and what did you see?
Well, first of all, maybe do you think, not to get off topic, but maybe a team in New York wishes that they would have maybe signed Joe Flacco back to the roster after,
are you kidding me?
After Aaron Rodgers went down the fourth week?
A place in New York that knows more than everybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think no doubt, and I hope and I think and I was kind of vociferous about this yesterday, that that's what it's supposed to look like.
That's what it's supposed to look
like.
like.
I think all the fans, I think anybody, no matter what your level of knowledge of the X's and O's of football or not, all of these fans that watch week in, week out, and have watched the previous 36 quarterbacks over the last, since coming back from 99, said, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. And so, yes, that is what it's supposed to look like. I saw a veteran, very disciplined, efficient, fast decisions. The G-Dub says, you say this all the time. Every single one of your players can say it. They live by this mantra. They understand that fast, correct decisions, but fast decisions are what win in the NFL.
They have
slow, correct decisions. They could be the right decisions that you've been coached to do in the meeting room, and where you're supposed to go on the playbook drawing, and where you win at half speed in practice. And it's the correct decision, but it's slow. It will always be wrong in the NFL.
And if you make a fast wrong decision, that's what I got hired to correct.
And a fast wrong decision or a fast not optimum decision has a chance of being right.
Coached.
And it has a chance of being right. But a slow decision, right or wrong, will never be right in the NFL. Players are too fast, too good. But I think you saw that. And then you saw the ball placement in the efficiency. But what do you think needs to be cleaned up from the offense right now overall, right? We said the quarterback played, better than the other quarterbacks we've seen play in it. So what needs to be cleaned up?
Number one thing is that we need to run the ball in a more efficient manner, as people understand where our strength and I don't care who the next man up is on the offensive line. It doesn't make any difference. It's about knocking the line of scrimmage back. And if you want to show a trick, how about going up underneath center and putting the quarterback's hands underneath center, which Joe has done over and over and over again, and downhill run, one step cut back run, okay, one step power, all that type of stuff. And then when you are knocking the line of scrimmage back and you are threatening them personally, okay, with imposing your will attitudes, then you take a shot down the field. Then you might have a slow down gimmick play. But we got to start establishing line of scrimmage again, and putting the quarterback under center would be fine.
It's funny. It's crazy. We're sitting here talking about all of a sudden, hey, that quarterback, play was what even kept us in it. And what we need to do and we need to correct is defense and special teams, which has been our backbone all year long. And we say, the old adage in our game, right, is that defense and special teams, defense and run game travel. Defense and run game travel. But they haven't this year.
They haven't.
Really, there's been a huge discrepancy between how we've played at home and then how we've played on the road. And a big part of that is because why we are so dominant as a team when we are playing dominant is because of being dominant in the run game and the defense.
Yes.
And the run game and the defense has been very subpar on the road this year, really the entire year. And
that's supposed to travel. That is what has to travel to take the next step with a playoff kind of a team.
Speaking about just specifics of yesterday, and how much do you think, and this is going back to another player that you drafted and developed early in his career, but Aaron Donald, how much do you think Aaron Donald affected the game yesterday and or the game plan, and what are you seeing from him still playing dominant?
You know what? Great stories there, too. I could tell some stories about being in the draft room on him, too, on what I had to say and what we had to do to get somebody to draft some little short guy. And I hope he hears this, because he and I have a battle all the time on who's taller, and it's been proven through science that I am 3/8 of an inch taller than him, okay? I'm not as wide and thick, but at 3/8 of an inch taller. What a great player. And the fact of he caused havoc on being even over complicated on where he was at. He's traveling over back and forth, right and left, and then how they have to run block him, because they give him the ability to stunt. Okay, when he reads run, he doesn't have to play in his normal alignment gap. He'll trick and move over into another gap. He's again one of the best players I've ever coached, and it's like another son to me. And but he tries to emotionally abuse me, and I emotionally abuse him every chance I get. By the way, I did talk with him last night after the game, and I was on him pretty hard about what took you to the last play of the game to finally show up and get a sack, and you got a points on the board. And I'm not going to repeat what he shot back at me when he made that play at the end of the game, because he was blistering me.
Hey, he made one more play than Miles.
He did.
He made
one
more play than Miles. Who got shot yesterday. But I would say you may be 3/8 of an inch taller than him. But I don't think you can bench press 500 pounds and run sub 4.65 and toss grown men out of the bar like little children.
It brings up another story.
We know how great Batonio is and Wyatt Teller is.
Yeah, I know. Both those guys.
Aaron Donald is a different human being. Different human being. It's
got
physics.
A great story.
It's physics.
And he plays so hot and emotionally. But everybody saw that many years ago when he got ejected from a game and jerked helmets off and was hitting the 49ers and all that kind of stuff. Well, we're out there in L.A. and we got a game. I won't tell you who we're playing, and he's hot, and all kinds of stuff's going on after the play. And we call timeout, and I go out there and I grab a hold of it, and I'm taking him off, and I calming him down to go over and sit down and get special teams play and sit down. All of a sudden, he starts up again. He starts hollering at me, I'm going, and I go over and I get down in his face and I start ripping him and yelling at him, and I took my play sheet that's laminated
play sheet.
And it's like a razor edge.
Yeah, you shook it in his face.
Shook in his face, but I was getting ready to slap him across the face with it, and I hit the edge and I gashed him, and he had to have 6 stitches in his nose, and he wanted to throw me out in to the stadium and come get some after I cut his nose.
No doubt. You were praying that he didn't get up, or Chris Long and William Hayes.
They were all
kept him on the bench.
Yeah, they all, and especially Will Hayes and those guys. They were making sure that I never forget that too. That they saved my life.
But I think the offense is in good hands. I think that's what we're seeing. We got to get the run game fixed. We got to get the playing on the road fixed.
Yes.
Because right now probably going to have to play on the road in the playoffs.
Yes.
When we get there. But I think we're seeing hope. We got the right man for the job to lead us in December and in January. But stick right with us. And when we get back, we're going to talk some around the league play on our Pay That Man segment. Welcome back in to Come Get Some, and I know this is one of your favorite parts of the show.
It is. I love this part.
And this is the pay that man his money portion of the show. And so this is a guy, that he plays for America's team, right? Kind of so-called. It's kind of always getting, seems to be getting hate, but that's just comes with, to a degree, being the quarterback of that team, but is playing a super, super high level. And Dak Prescott, I know he's been paid before, but his contract is up next year, and you see where the market's been reset, right? Over the last year or so, and you look at that, $40 million a year deal that he's outperformed, and the market is reset. And so I think he will get paid, but we've already talked about CeeDee Lamb previously on this segment. He's got to get paid. They've got defensive players, there that have to get paid. So I don't know, Jerry.
Jerry, who's in charge of Pay That Man? Okay, you're in charge of Pay That Man. You're in charge. Nobody else to blame. Okay, now it's time. Drop it. Drop some body part and pay that man.
No doubt. But for the fans out there, I think you guys realize, he is playing, he's a polarizing person, right? Because it's a polarizing team. He's a polarizing person. But just over their last 6 games, he's averaging, 317 passing yards a game.
Lights out.
Well over 70, percent completion percentage a game. He's got 21 total touchdowns and 2 turnovers.
And I think Mike's doing a heck of a job coaching him, okay?
Mm-hmm.
With all the foot presence and all the footwork things and the decision-making things he's doing, Mike and Dak are on the same page.
No doubt. And I'll say this: I'll throw a honorable mention out there to another guy that we know can't get paid yet, because that's just how the league is when you're a young guy and he's still on a guaranteed rookie minimum salary. But Brock Purdy is number one.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant is number one in almost every
stat.
QBR, all right, touchdown ratio, passing yards per attempt.
To my face.
And you saw what he just did to who everybody thought was the most dominant team in the league. But we beat the 49ers. So ipso facto, right, we are the dominant team in the league.
There you go.
We just got to get the run game and the defense figured back out.
But Brock is showing everybody you can be what you want to be when you're able to work harder than everybody else thinks you can work, and that's very, very pleasant for me to see.
No doubt. But please stick right with us, and when we get back, we're going to talk about some crazy conundrum stats in the NFL. Welcome back into Come Get Some. I'm your host, Blake Williams. I'm here with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams. And this is a new segment for us. This is our crazy conundrum stats. All right, and so there's been some crazy conundrum type stats out there this year.
You're a stataholic, so I know.
Yeah.
You are. I know. You always have been.
You don't use them to prove a theory, right? But it's sometimes they're just fun, weird numbers games, right? We talked about the one a couple of weeks ago where the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs were both had the same record, yet the Cleveland Browns offense had scored more points than the Chiefs at that standpoint.
Shocking.
And I think sometimes it goes to some narratives. The talking heads, some narratives get talked about out there sometimes. We talked about it with Denver. All right, a couple of weeks ago, said, hey, you better watch out. This team's legit. It's not what this narrative is out there about it. But so here's some crazy stats. So if I told you here's two teams in the AFC. There's one team in the AFC that is plus 101 points in differential. They've scored 101 more points than they've allowed, and yet they're 6-6. And then there's another team that's in the AFC that's minus 37 points, yet they're 7-5. Who do you think those teams are?
Well, just because I do know the answer to the question is that Buffalo is the team with the plus 101, which means their offense must have been doing pretty good, except for throwing the ball away and doing the turnovers. But defensively, I would say it's time to step up a little bit and shrink that gap. And then the defense has been winning games at Pittsburgh for years and years and years and years. And Mike Tomlin does a great job on managing the game. But until you said minus 37, I didn't know the number.
I know.
And both of those teams, big time.
Buffalo is plus 101.
Oh, my gosh.
Pittsburgh is minus 37. All right. But turnovers and situational play matter. Here's another one. All right. Crazy one. First team to lose 3 straight games when holding opponents to 10 or fewer points. The first team to lose 3 consecutive games where they've allowed 10 or fewer points in those 3 consecutive games since before World War II.
And we were talking about this the other night and going over and over and over again about how great of defense Bill Belichick is playing at the New England Patriots. And we've lost 3 straight games, okay, and we've given up 10 or fewer points in 3 straight games. Now, we're allergic to putting points on the board.
And so here's another crazy, and so New England is that team. And here's another crazy stat on that standpoint. Over the last 4 weeks in the NFL, the number 1 scoring defense, the New England Patriots, they've allowed 46 points combined in the last 4 games, and they are 0-4. The number 2 team in that span is the San Francisco 49ers, and they've only allowed 49 points, and they're 4-0 and blowing people out. But 46 points in 4 games allowed combined and being 0-4.
Yeah, and the other thing is that maybe the defense has to score a few more points on New England.
How about this? Here's one crazy one for you. The Browns have allowed the most points in the AFC North. That's you have
shocking.
Guessed that?
No, I would not have guessed that.
So explosive plays in red zone. It goes back to what you're talking about. Red zone. Explosive play.
Yeah,
the Browns have allowed more points than Baltimore, Pitt, Cincinnati. And here's another crazy one. The Browns are tied for 12th in the league in points allowed. They're tied for 12th in the league in points allowed. 6 of the teams that are ahead of them are either 500 or worse. So the Browns are 7-5, but 6 of the teams that have better scoring defenses in the NFL are either 6-6 or 5-7 or below.
Yeah, that's a crazy
which
stat
is pretty
too.
crazy, no doubt. So a lot of crazy stats out there in this league. We need to get this thing routed, though, this week. The only stat that matters, all right, is about win points at the end of the game, wins or
Points
loss.
at the end of the game and how many wins and how many losses. That's what counts.
And so it's that time. Send us out, G-Dub, with a ready break. Come get some.
Ready, break.
Come get some.